It says we're live. I'm hoping we're live. I'm Joe.
I'm Ashley.
We're Geek to My Nerd, and you have joined us for a very special, long-awaited To Infinity War and Beyond.
The one that's actually about Infinity War.
Correct. This is episode 10, the 10th anniversary, and the big movie, like the big one everyone's been waiting for. And it's really hard to have something like this if we don't do something special, right?
Exactly, but you just see these two people here in their normal living room with their normal stuff that we didn't redecorate, apparently.
No, we totally did not. It's been busy.
All the little Groots fell.
They did.
You can't see the Groots.
It's symbolic. So, and you can probably see him down below, but we're going to unmute him now. So we have, to celebrate this ambitious crossover event, we have our own ambitious crossover.
So professional.
Odd Shape Channel's joined us. Welcome, you guys.
Because I fixed the Groots.
Wait, I thought I unmuted you.
You didn't unmute them. Our show is so professional.
Okay. That's worked. Hopefully.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm locked
How are you?
Much better. How are y'all doing? Settling in? Excellent. Excellent. So, as you guys know, Tommy Kimber, for those that keep up with everything around us and junk and our friends and such, Tommy Kimber just recently moved to Austin. We helped them move in. That was an exciting weekend. There are pictures online in places. You could probably find them with enough searching.
You probably can.
So.
But yeah, our original intent was to do this on our couch, but just logistical things. Just this whole Infinity War, I think, is just a logistical issue.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter like who's involved or whatnot. It's just things are awry. So we're having to do this the old-fashioned way, which is, I guess, not the old-fashioned way. It's actually the modern way. Doesn't matter like who's involved or whatnot. It's just things are awry. So and then Joe's likes the unmuting things and repeating things.
There we go.
This is like the least professional episode we've ever done.
We still love you.
Is there like a Thanos gauntlet where you can snap and just like undo like the last few seconds with like
You just have the time gem.
Okay, well the time gem is not on my side. We got like probably 87 dislikes already. Whatever.
It's okay. So, should we go ahead and jump in with the introduction, and then we'll have our discussions and such as we go?
Sure.
Sound good to y'all?
Yes. Your show.
All right, to Infinity War and Beyond, the actual Infinity War episode, because I already said that. Why not? So we're going to do a very general overview, which will be spoiler-free. And then once we really start getting into gripes and likes and everything else, the gauntlet's off and spoiler territory.
Did you just do that?
Yes, I did. Also, I think I need to move the other little group because it's catching the fan and it's bothering me. All right, so gripes, likes, like we always do. I took out MCU connections because really everything's a connection in this movie. But I do have a Stan Lee cameo, and we're going to talk about after credits, and then we have our special segment just for Infinity War called Oh Snap. We'll find out about that when we get there. You have to stay to
I don't know what's going on. Continue.
So how much of that was actually said, who knows?
I'm not sure.
Oh, technical difficulties.
It has been so bad. Real quick, also, thanks. Baron Mongolia is our new subscriber with his Activate the Sound gem.
Thank you. All right, someone's going to take it from the top. And again, if I just keep saying it, it's just going to keep getting even more unprofessional. And, of course, one of our cats comes in. So April 27th, 2018, Anthony and Joe Russo directing. They are originally from the Captain America trilogy, now taking the helm from Joss Whedon on this epic crossover. Again, movie 7 of the longest phase ever of phase 3. Of course, it opened at #1 at the box office. I think there was no doubt that that would happen. This is also the biggest budget ever, $320 million. I'm pretty sure that's to pay for the 22 major actors that are in this this crossover. Its domestic box office opening shattered records. Now it's the #1 domestic opening of all time, taking away the award from The Force Awakens. And it's already in 11 days hit over $1 billion worldwide. That's the fastest to $1 billion ever.
That is pretty insane. Trying to unmute people. Okay.
Let's not mute anyone ever
again. I'm butchering this whole presentation.
This is what happens when you play God, Joe.
You wanted to happen with the whole situation.
Right. All right. So, what are we going to talk in first?
Of course, we're going to talk about gripes.
All right.
And again, this is where just spoiler, the gauntlet's off, and as our cat is playing with something.
This whole episode is spoiler territory. Ahoy!
Yes. So if you get mad because you got spoiled, we've already had 87 disasters happen, so you're out of luck. All right. So this is very minor. Did you put it back on there?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Just making sure. So I just really hate Black Widow's eyebrows. Like, I understand why her character changed her hair color. That does not bother me at all. If you're going out on the run and your hair color is bright, vibrant red, you're going to have to tone that down. But could they have darkened her eyebrows just a little so that they stood out a little on her face? It just looks so weird.
Yeah.
Minor
gripe. Super minor.
Very minor.
What about y'all? Any issues with that?
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of the blonde hair. I could have used like some sort of like explanation other than just us insinuating like, you know, perhaps maybe she's on the run or in disguise for some mission or something. Like, they should have said something. It was a little strange that she was just blonde all of a sudden.
Yeah,
I thought it was a shout out to Gotham's Victor Zsasz.
I thought it was an intent to a shout out to Yelena Belova, the other Black Widow.
That makes more sense.
But you would think that Banner, at least, because he hasn't seen her in, you know, however long, would say something.
I mean, Cap and Thor had moments to talk about their hair in battle.
Exactly. So I don't know. But that.
I thought he said you looked nice or something like that.
Yeah.
You saw more than one.
All right, so that was one of mine. There's not really like a whole lot of pictures for the gripes, and so we can just continue on and such. Of course, you know how much I really, really dislike Pepper Potts so much.
It's more like you dislike Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, the character doesn't bother me. I just really don't like Gwyneth Paltrow, and so anytime that Tony and Pepper Potts are on screen together, it just really bothers me. And I'm pretty sure she's going to break up with him now that he ran away to space.
Maybe. If there's a Tony Stark
would be the really
back.
Stupidest reason ever to break up with somebody who's trying to save the universe. But she seems pretty petty, so I don't like her. What are y'all thoughts on Pepper Potts?
Yeah, I didn't find her terribly memorable in this one because she was really only in the beginning, and there was so much going on that was more interesting than her. But
at the same time, I don't want Infinity War to be the Pepper Potts story. Like, the fact that we got 5 minutes of it was plenty. We didn't need more.
I don't know. I felt like the 5 minutes was too much.
Yeah.
They didn't give Jane Foster a proper goodbye. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, your girlfriend broke up with you. So, you know, couldn't he have just been like a phone call?
Jane's better.
Jane is better.
Jane is much better.
So much better. Anyway, I think that's literally only pictures I have for gripes. So if anybody else would like to say something, speak now or forever hold your peace.
So what gripes do y'all have?
I don't think I have
None.
Yeah, none.
I don't have complaints, and I don't have complaints on this one.
My only thing was I wish Cap had his shield just because it's so iconic, but due to the story and where he is at the time, it makes sense. Like, it's really not fair to pick that apart. And it was cool to see those gauntlet, like, shield things.
I liked them, personally.
Yeah. I want to see what they do in Avengers 4.
Yep.
But I like giving him that in that setting because he doesn't have it. So maybe Tony will give it back. I don't know.
I agree. I also wish Cap had more to do other than kind of occasionally just deliver a relatively inspiring line.
Yeah.
He looked sexy, though. I will say that.
The beard works. The beard works super well. And the longer hair.
I didn't think it was fair that Rhodey said that they all looked like crap because, like, they really didn't look that bad for having, I guess, been on the run for however long. I guess for the 2 years since Civil War.
Like 2 years.
Yeah, they looked pretty fresh to me from having fought those monsters and such. That you know, don't be giving them such a hard time.
Vision looks like crap.
It is interesting, though. I do like how distressed Captain America's uniform has become. Like the stars falling out of the chest, and like it kind of like symbolizes his like disdain with the current political climate he just had to escape with Civil War.
Yeah,
everything's darker, and it just looks like it's from just like dirt and grime and just being in the thick of it.
And they should not say that they look like crap, because if those people look like crap, what are they saying about us mere mortals?
I know, right?
I do have another gripe, and it has to do with Cap and some of the others. Some of the dialogue with what I'm going to call Team Wakanda, the team that was still on Earth most of the movie, felt stilted at some points. Not like super bad, just like every once in a while it felt like there was a line that was kind of injected in there post-editing that maybe should have been cut. Like one of my examples is when they're in Wakanda and Proxima Midnight, and I can't remember what they called him, like Dwarf Star or something like that. The big guy come up to the barrier.
Black.
Obsidian Black. That's weird.
Yeah, it's just like there's two names for Black.
Yeah. But they're talking, and they're like, "We're here for the gem." And Cap first says, "You'll get nothing," and then Black Panther also says, like, "You're in Wakanda, all you'll get is blood and sand." I'm like, we didn't need both of those. That felt weird. Minor issue, not even a real issue, just like a every so often.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
The only other
I interpreted that a little differently. I took it as Cap is so used to being the guy who is like, "Nope, I'll tell you how it's about to go down," and then T'Challa was like, "Well, this is my country. I agree with you."
And I get that. That's totally the vibe I got they were trying to go for too. It's just it felt like stilted. Like there wasn't even a moment where Black Panther just looks at Cap and he's like,
"Dude, this is my country."
They can quip all day, but whenever there's a really good spot to quip, there's no quip.
The only other thing that bothered me were there were some CGI issues, especially with Bruce Banner inside the Hulkbuster armor when they took the helmet off. It didn't even look like they were in the same room together. Like it was just so poorly rendered where he looked like it was a video game, like cut scene from like the worst video game from like the PlayStation 2 era.
That's a bit much. It's like PlayStation 3.
Okay, well it looked pretty bad. And then the other one that I don't know if it's just like an Uncanny Valley issue or if it was the CGI wasn't as great on her character, but Proxima Midnight, she just looked so weird to me.
I think
every time I saw it, I could not stop looking at her going like, okay, what is it? Is it like the way her eyes are set apart where like, and she has kind of like a extended forehead. Like it just bothered me every time. Like she didn't look like she was quite real either.
I think with her, the big deal for me is it's like her face is the only one that's like vaguely human. And the rest of her is not. But, like, her face looks human enough that it kind of generates an Uncanny Valley effect. That's me.
I mean, it definitely feels alien.
Yeah.
Which
It's a good point.
It does remind me a lot of the animation they were using for Ready Player One, though.
Yeah, but her face,
The
like,
eyes.
yeah, mostly in the eyes and mouth, she looked more human than the rest of the Black Order.
Yeah, I like her. I thought the voice, I don't know which actress played her, but the voice sounded really cool. Like I was genuinely afraid. I liked all the minions.
The Black Order.
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't really bother me. I guess like if I had one thing to complain about with that is that I think that none of that group was as cool as Ebony Maw was. Like that's the one character that I thought was really interesting and excellent and looked awesome, and that the rest of the group wasn't nearly as memorable as him.
Totally.
All right, well, that kind of is, I think, a good transition into the things that we liked, which is always the bigger part of these episodes. And speaking of Ebony Maw, seriously, the best character ever. I loved his line delivery. I thought he was rendered really well. I enjoyed every scene he was in. I think he stole every scene. I loved when Tony called him Squidward.
Yep.
And like that got a huge laugh out of every time we saw the movie. All the kids and some adults, people our age and such, really loved that. He was just the best. You can just tell he's totally insane.
Yeah, in the theater, Kimber like spoke in my ear, and it looks like they did a prosthetic and then just enhanced the prosthetic with the mocap, which is a really smart way to make it a convincing looking.
Yeah, if there was no prosthetic, then they did a really convincing look on that character, because it really was beautiful, even on a big screen. And I loved the way that character looked, and whoever designed it for the movie, gorgeous.
Very much so. And I also felt like his physicality, like the way he delivered lines, not only verbally, but like hand gestures, and the like when he's chasing after Doctor Strange in Manhattan and he's just riding on that chunk of rock and he's just kind of chill with the whole situation, casual hand movement for the psychokinesis and all sorts of stuff. It's great.
Which we should note isn't his power set from the comics, but this is one of those examples where they go and they enhance the character for the screen, and it doesn't bother you unless you're a diehard fanboy who's like, that's not my Proxima Midnight.
Well, I mean,
even use.
It's definitely not Proxima Midnight. But it's a similar move they pulled with Deadpool with Negasonic Teenage Warhead, because I think her power is more like telepathy style powers in the comics. And they gave her like those psychokinetic blast powers in the movies.
Yeah, and for a character who's not terribly physically intimidating, that's an intimidating character. To have somebody go up against Doctor Strange in a fight and kind of be like, oh, that's cute, is like a scary moment for sure.
I think for me, he definitely was the scariest of them, because he just seemed to, he bought into like the Thanos proposition the most. Like you could tell, like, he really believes in the mission, where the other ones, like, maybe they would defect if, like, things came their way, but no, Ebony Maw is a true dyed-in-the-wool believer of Thanos, and he will do whatever he wants until he's no longer living, which was very soon in the movie. Too soon.
Too soon. Much too soon. So, any more Ebony Maw love before we move on to the next like?
I mean, I'll talk for 20 minutes about him, so we should probably just skip it.
The Ebony Maw show.
All right, next like.
All right, and these are not in like any particular order, and there's not a lot of them, because with it being a new movie, there's not a lot of information out there. I really loved Loki.
In the beginning?
Yes, I thought this was like the best Loki ever. I would have pictures of this Loki in my house, because I don't know, something about the way he looked was just really good.
It's like some of the best Loki hair, because that's one of the inconsistencies with Loki in all three Thor movies, is his hair is kind of like off and on from movie to movie. And
I'm not just gonna like talk about the way he looked. I thought that what he did with his character, kind of playing up his trickster personality and his powers, was really good, where you can kind of see that even though it seems at first that he's totally on the side of Thanos, when when it comes down to it, he doesn't want to see his brother die in front of him.
He doesn't want him to suffer.
And you could just the looks on his face when he realizes that Thanos doesn't play and he can't watch Thor be decimated by the Power Stone. It was very heartbreaking.
Yep.
And then that moment when he brings out the Tesseract and Thor's like, "You're the worst brother."
Yep.
And that's the last thing he ever got to really say to him. That was devastating. And this whole beginning of the movie sequence is great because it doesn't start with that normal, like, it's a fun day in the Marvel Universe fanfare. It's like, no, we have a serious issue. We're like a peaceful vessel. We only have families on here.
The Asgardian distress signal.
Yeah, the distress call. Like, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to start out heavy, and it delivered.
Yep.
Yeah, and I thought this was beautifully set up also in Ragnarok, first off with the hair, because you do get Thor commenting on that his hair is greasy in Ragnarok, so maybe they fixed it because of that. And obviously taking his words to heart about, like, that he's, you know, the trickster god, but he could be so much more than that.
I was about to say the same thing.
And he does end up being so much more than that in the end. And this scene kind of foreshadows what you get later between Nebula and Gamora as well, pretty directly. So it kind of has like an ongoing theme with the siblings in this movie.
Plus, this movie lets you know right off the bat, it's not messing around. It makes you watch like all the fangirls' heartthrob, like get choked to death, and like it was done really convincingly. Like it was good.
And anyone who has a brother, that's like terrible. I don't know what I would do if to just see somebody take your brother in front of you and not be able to do anything about it. It's like a helpless feeling watching it. You feel so terrible for Thor.
And when Thanos talks about like no resurrections this time, and like just tosses him to the ground like he's nothing, and that's the moment. Even because before, like, his Heimdall is like the first one that really gets it when he bifrosts the Hulk out of the situation. But it's like, okay, this isn't playing. Oh no, seriously, this movie is not playing around. We've already had 2 characters die in the first scene.
Yep.
This movie is not going to be an easy one. And then, like, from that moment on, the first viewing, like, you're just engaged and tense the whole time. Like, what's gonna happen? Oh no, what will happen next? And then when the ship blows up, but you saw the trailer, so you know Thor's not dead. But like, when will he come back?
And what condition will he be in?
Yes.
I also really liked that even Loki apparently had a moment with the Hulk in this where he's like, well, you've got this, but we've got a Hulk. And then Hulk just like charges Thanos.
And yeah, that was definitely a cool fight. And then let him have his fun.
Yep. Again, Ebony Maw.
Yes. But yeah, Loki was great.
Totally.
Before we move on to the next thing, we should probably check in with the chat.
So we got a lot of people in. Let's see. Billy Paulahan's here. Cal's here. Bear Mongolia. Again, thanks for the recent subscription, sir. Night Shame's here. Janine's here. TJ Dex. We got a full house tonight. I'm going down. If I miss someone, I'm sorry. This guy named like Tom's here. I said Cal was here. It looks like everyone for now, but I'm going through the chat.
All right, if you'll put it back on the screen. All right, I loved the rapport. I guess it's not really a rapport, but like the antagonism of Peter versus Tony.
Yep.
That whole moment where they like, what are you like? Are you from Earth? I'm from Missouri. That's on Earth. And he said a bad word that I can't say. And just they all think that they're working for Thanos, but we all know that they're all the good guys. But just to see that kind of dramatic irony play out on screen was just so great.
Yep.
I love dramatic irony.
Where's Gamora? I'll do you one better. Who's Gamora?
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?
Oh, Drax.
Drax is... I love Drax. I like Drax's humor.
I'm completely...
Yeah, I was a little scared that they wouldn't be able to, like, do the classic, if we're going to team up, we have to fight first thing that they've done in most of the other Avenger movies. Because there's just so much so many characters and so much time, or so little time, that I wasn't sure if they would be able to do that. And just have that little burst of it, and even if it's not pure like fight scenes, at least it's like a back and forth, and that I can deal with.
Yep.
And then them disagreeing on what the plan should be. It's like, okay, I like your plan, but it sucks. And let's do my plan because then it won't suck. Like, okay, Star-Lord.
I like that Quill's a good leader too, because because he knows the strengths and weaknesses of his team. Like plans, that's not one of their strengths.
Don't call us plucky. We don't know what it means. Just the back and forth, and anytime you have one of these big team up movies, whether it's like an actual movie or like those special event crossovers like on television that are over several episodes, you never know how like each of the different groups is going to be able to like be a foil for each other, and will they fit together seamlessly. And I thought everybody fit together pretty well. Like they had all been working together for years and years, even if they had never been in the same movie together. So I thought this was a pretty brilliant team up.
And I was glad that we got to see Star-Lord interact with a couple different people, because I really enjoyed the exchange with Thor as well. I thought that whole bit was hilarious, and how impressed Drax was with Thor in particular. Like some of his lines were really hilarious, and I was excited to see Thor team up with Rocket, because my brother is kind of a Thor and I'm definitely a Rocket, so I was like, yes. Team up. I was a big fan of that. I liked the groups they decided to go with on the little teams.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to say, while we're talking about the little dynamic on Thanos' planet, I love when it's like, oh, is Kevin, and then they're talking about, is Footloose the best movie still? And he goes, it never was.
Peter.
Yeah,
Peter just tearing down the other Peter.
Yes, Quill's face, and then when he even knows that when Drax brings up the dance off to save the universe and just thinks that's a normal thing or whatever, or maybe he's trying to make Quill look bad. It's hard to tell with Drax, but Quill's like, no, don't tell them about that. Like he knows that's not cool at all. He doesn't want to look uncool in front of the new heroes.
Yep.
And then he's so excited about Footloose, he doesn't even remember that what he said was, or what he did was kind of lame.
And I'm going to throw this out there, Billy. I am reading what people are saying. It's just we have a lot to go through, and I haven't been able to read much of it. So sorry about that for everyone. There's a lot in this chat. But yeah, there's so many of the commentaries back and forth with people that are just fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, let me see what I got next. And then speaking of some of the stuff that y'all had mentioned already with them meeting Thor for the first time, and what did
You're
Drax?
A dude. This is a man.
And it's like, please stop massaging the man's muscles or whatever when Gamora's touching his bicep.
And then what else? He's like if a pirate had a baby with an angel.
I liked the payoff with Rocket giving him an eye too. It almost felt like they were maybe working towards that somehow. It was cool. I liked it.
I also like that because like when he's talking about like all of he's like trying to like, okay, now it's time to be the captain, and not just be the snarky one or whatever, but like when you're the captain, you have to make sure everyone's taken care of. And so he knows that Thor has dealt with tremendous loss, and like he's trying to find the sunshine in the darkness, but like, oh no, they're dead too. They died. No, they died. It's like, wow. Like, like there's like so much that you have to lose, and like Rocket's kind of coming to that realization, and like Thor, like he's trying to like brush it off, but then like you can see like the little tear like stream down like his actual good eye. And I also really love the moment where Rocket gives him the eyes, like, well, if you're going to kill Thanos, you're going to need 2 eyes to do that. And then Thor's just like, okay, cool. And it's like, oh, you should have probably washed that first.
Yep.
I had to sneak that out.
In a very uncomfortable place.
And everyone's
there
like,
was a heavy foreshadowing going on with Rocket, too, saying that he has to be the captain, and he kind of pretty much ends up alone, and also saying that like Thor says he doesn't have much to lose, and Rocket's like, well, I do, and obviously he gets quite a bit of loss in this one for sure.
It hurts.
And then kind of going back to Thor's interactions. Let me see what I have next. We'll talk about that part in a moment. When you think that Thor's going to get angry at Gamora, because we're used to people that, like when people find out that Gamora is related to Thanos, that they want to kill her, it's like, okay, what is Thor going to do? Because Thor's a good guy. And he's talking about how Thanos has taken so much from him. And then he's like, total tonal shift, like, oh man, family's rough. And then starts going into all of his family woes, making a connection with her, and it kind of just diffuses that tension right there. Like, okay, Thor has not totally lost it and gone away from his values and such.
And Quill's face whenever he's patting Gamora's shoulders, just like.
And then when Quill tries to also talk about, yeah, well, my dad to my mom, and I had to kill him, and trying to, and then when he does his impression, no, sir, you will not. Are you imitating him? This is my normal voice.
He's doing it again.
Loved it.
Yeah, I kind of jokingly call Thor the Asgardian of the galaxy now.
Yep.
Nice. I want to see him and Rocket team up and go on adventures.
Buddy cop movie.
Yes, I would pay so much money for that.
So our next slide.
Yeah, and then just the relationship, when I really love the way they used music in this movie, even though it wasn't a standout all the time, in a typical Guardians movie, but when it does that transition, it doesn't, you hear the music first, and he's like, okay, it's a pop song. We know Guardians are going to show up, and then we see space, and we see them all jamming out to the music.
We see two of them jamming out to the music.
Okay, well, the ship, people were there. Groot was tapping his foot. Sure, Drax was asleep. But just I liked how they did it a couple of times where they would have the music cue first and then it would show you the shot. But the music cue was your foreshadowing to what was about to happen. Yeah. I thought that was really good transition. And I just love the teenage Groot is playing his game and he's not listening to anything anybody's doing. And then he obviously said something really rude to Peter. And then Rocket chided him and talked about ever since you got some sap, you've been a real bad name.
I believe Peter has also said, you got some acorns on you, buddy.
Yes.
There's a lot of love for them jamming Rubber Band Man in the beginning. Gamora also jamming along with Peter singing along. I'm like, yes, that made me happy to see. That was heartwarming to see Gamora singing along.
And also, I really enjoyed the moment where talking about well, why are we doing this? It's well, we have to go save somebody. There's a distress signal. And, if they happen to be grateful, maybe they'll give us some money.
Some cheddar cheese.
And if they don't, we'll take their ship. Yeah, we'll take their ship. And Gamora just gives him the look. And he's like,
yeah, I think it's funny to see Gamora loosen up a bit now that she's succumbed to Peter's pelvic sorcery.
Yep.
I think that he's definitely had an influence on her for sure.
I think they've all influenced each other. That's one of the beautiful things about the Guardians, that they're such a family that they kind of bring out the best and the most interesting elements of each other. And most interesting is not the right, but they allow each other to be more themselves.
Yeah, I said that's just like our group.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so moving on. I really loved when the Hulk just smashed right into the Doctor Strange's the Sanctum.
Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yes, and it's Thanos is coming. Who? That was pretty great.
Billy bringing up that chest hair though. Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
And then from this point on, he has trouble hulking out, which I thought was really good and interesting. We're so used to him being able to control that aspect, and especially from Ragnarok, where he's afraid to come back as the Hulk, because if he does, then maybe he's never coming back again. And now, when they need him the most, it's hey, you need. What do you mean? No.
Hulk got just beat down so hard by Thanos. Hulk was like, I'm not having any of this.
Yeah,
right now.
I'm done. I retired. We're good.
I like the opposite side of that. I think that he only wants to fight Thanos. I think that Thanos embarrassed him, and now he wants to only fight Thanos. But it could be either one. They don't explicitly say, but that's kind of I thought that was a interesting way to look at it as well.
Still, they top the transformation scenes, because when you watch the like original, like even Ang Lee's Hulk, which was horrible, like they did a poor job, but it was like they gradually gotten to the point where it's almost seamless between Ruffalo and the Hulk.
Mm-hmm. I like the like half transformations and quarter transformations. Really cool. I think they're really interesting.
The way it would knock him out and such, because it's so taxing on his
when
system.
he was trying to push it, you could see the green inching up his neck, and then it just retracts suddenly. Baron Mongolia points out that Hulk takes the place of Silver Surfer in this movie, because in the comics, Silver Surfer is the one that shows up at the Sanctum Sanctorum to warn the Avengers of Thanos' coming, or lets them know what's going on or something.
Yeah, I had heard that as well. And of course, with the MCU and such, there's not like 100% like adaptation from comic sources. They've kind of taken what they want to craft a new thing, which is fine. Speaking,
I was glad to see so much Doctor Strange in this movie, but I'm a little biased, slightly.
Speaking of,
of course, another team up that I thought worked really well. With Tony, Peter, and Doctor Strange, that moment, like, oh, hi, I'm Peter Parker, I'm Doctor Strange. Oh, we're using our fake names. Well, I'm Spider-Man. It's like, oh, sweetie. And then the fact that, like, oh, I tried to like leave, but then like the suit's really intuitive. And,
so if anything, it's your fault, Mr. Stark.
And the whole line, well, like there can't you can't have a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood to go back to. I know that doesn't make sense. It's like, no, actually that makes perfect sense. And he's always wanting to be so helpful. He's a very helpful spider. So
Billy really wanted a Sherlock. Billy really wanted a Sherlock acknowledgement, no matter how silly it would have been. And I agree. There's an old line I'm not going to repeat because of language.
But you all know what it is.
No poop, Sherlock.
Yeah.
I would have loved that. With as liberal as they were with the cursing in this film.
Yeah, they did curse quite a bit. Not like in a way that would be like super bad, but just enough where it stands out. And then the antagonism between Strange and Stark was very good, because
do you concur, Doctor?
I like it when he shows up in Central Park. It's like, Tony Stark, I need you to come with me. The universe is at stake. It's like, are you like passing out a flyer for something? And,
yeah, tickets or something, man.
Like, you need to make some balloon animals.
Oh, and he stops. He's like, also, congratulations on the way.
And later, when Hulk is having trouble hulking out, it's like, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards.
Yep.
We were a big fan of the moment with Peter Parker trying to introduce himself to the Cape.
Yes.
Cloak, sorry. But I thought that was really cute.
I also love that something like, I don't think I could stop you, but the kid's seen more movies.
Yeah, that was great. I like that they did the little throwback. Have you seen this really old movie called Aliens? Oh, and he's like, no more pop culture references out of you for the rest of the trip. He's such a dad.
I'd be happy if he didn't do that for the rest of the franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it can definitely be overdone.
Yes.
And then the fact that Strange could have easily been jettisoned out into space along with Ebony Maw, but of course, they're not going to get rid of Strange that way.
No, totally.
But I really enjoyed the banter among the three of them, and especially... trying to think of the way to say this. Was Strange with his arrogance paired with Stark's arrogance. It's arrogance overload, and they're like trying to like one up each other, and they're both right, but they're both wrong, and like they need to find a way to meet in the middle, but they can't, especially when it comes to protecting the time stone. It's like, you should just destroy it, but I'm supposed to protect it. We also may want to use it. So
yeah,
just great. Loved it.
It's like a battle of ego and purpose. You know what I mean? Because like, I have my thing to do. You may have to save the Earth, but I have to protect reality. Like,
Yep.
There will be no Earth if reality is in jeopardy. So it's
to step up from the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man comment.
Interesting dynamics.
And it's fun to see the butting heads of like science and mysticism.
That's true too. I didn't think about it that way. Very true.
Yeah, because even in the comics, there's a Sorcerer Supreme and a Scientist Supreme. And Hank Pym is the Scientist Supreme, but he's a little aged out for that for the MCU. So it would be Stark, I would think.
So this was something in the trailer, and it was really well handled. Was his Spidey senses and his whole opening scene of Spider-Man and stuff.
Yeah, because I know it's a complaint that people had about the Spider-Man Homecoming is like, where's his Spidey sense? And so we see he does have the Spidey sense, and then I love it when he's like, Ned. Ned. I need you to cause a distraction, and he naturally just like sees that there's this floating spaceship donut, and is like, we're all gonna die, and everybody like piles in the back of the bus.
And that is distraction.
Yes, and so then I love it because that's such a kid thing to do with the whole, I'm going to whip open the bus window instead of actually just reaching over and unlatching it, which he totally could have done, but he's got to show off because that's how teenagers are.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really get the complaint from Homecoming. I think it's because Sam Raimi kind of batted you against the head with the spider sense with the little fly coming through, and if you think about like the scene where in Spider-Man 1 when he catches all of the fruit and stuff on the tray, no one's asking where's the scene, and that's how I thought of the whole Homecoming. But I thought this was a nice meet in the middle.
Yeah. This is one of two major three uses that his spider senses are working. One of them.
I love it. The one in Civil War where he just goes, oh, and then catches the thing and throws it back.
Yep. I also really like on the when they get to Titan or something like that, when they crash the starship, I think. And that's when his spider sense kicks in. He's like, oh, by the way, there's something else here.
Yeah. All right, let's see what we got next. Thor really was the one for me that was, I felt he was kind of the MVP of the movie.
Got hit by a sun.
Yeah, like he literally was the one that was willing to make the most sacrifices to get the job done, and literally opening the forge and risking his life. Thank goodness he is a deity, because I don't think any regular person, even someone like the Hulk, if they had done this, I think they would have been burnt to a crisp.
What else does he got to lose?
Exactly. So this moment was great.
I it as my MVP because he got Thor there.
Yep. That's true. And he gave Thor his eye.
Yes.
True story.
Peter Dinklage is my MVP.
I was so excited to see him. It's like, oh, he's a dwarf, but he's also a giant. That's really cool.
He's a Norse dwarf.
Yeah, clever, without like making it stereotypical.
Yeah.
And I liked the hands too. It was just all that part was really interesting.
And then the fact when he was like, why did you do this? It's like, well, I thought that if I gave him what he wanted, he would spare everybody, and he killed everyone instead. I
was the only one he left.
Yeah, I'm the only one he left, and he said, your hands are mine. And so they were like encased in the metal. It's like, we can still do this if we work together. Like, you still have the mold. We don't need necessarily to have you the dexterity.
Right.
You can still make the product. And then when Thor is kind of like on his last legs, and he's like, Tree, I need you to help me find the handle. And Groot's like, all right, here we go. Grows out his arm, grabs the axe, and you can see how it hurts him because it's still,
Yep.
It's new.
It's hot.
And he, sacrifices his limb to save Thor. Now, of course, Groot can grow stuff back. But just the fact that, before he was being so rude and surly and just a regular teenager, and it's like, oh, he does still have like that heart of the Groot that we knew from before.
Yep.
He does have that essence of his father in him. Because the big Groot was.
I have a theory. And like the origins of him as a species. We don't know if there's other Groots out there or not. But I definitely think he's a descendant of the World Tree, which if you're familiar with Norse mythology, like it's
Brazil.
really relevant. Like it holds the 9 realms together. I think they even show it in Thor 1. But the fact that Groot
used symbolically. Sorry.
The fact that they teach Groot in Asgard, and the fact that his wood is strong enough to hold such a strong weapon, makes it feel like their worlds are more connected than we think, which is cool. I like that little threads between the lore.
Yeah, I think there's at least some link to Yggdrasil and Groot or Groots, even if it's not directly linked. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism. A forge that was made, a forge of dwarves, is actually a space ring around a dying star, so there has to be some symbolism there. I think it's intended as well.
Yeah, I noticed there was a lot of Norse naming conventions for a lot of the other planets that they went to as well. So it's like they're like a vast number of their influence across the universe. So I thought that was cool. But I like that theory. I had never thought about that. Very cool. Let's see what we got.
I'll tweet you.
So we're back to Team Wakanda.
Yeah, Wakanda forever, or as I keep joking, Wakanda for about 2.5, 3 more minutes. But it will be the most glorious end of a nation ever. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, I don't know, like, what the sequel will be for Black Panther, but some kind of everybody mad at him for opening up the country to, like, the one time we opened up the country and then all of this catastrophe fell before us. The timing is not very good for poor T'Challa.
It's true.
But
I mean, I think people can be mad, but it works out because Thanos would have found them anyway.
Oh, of course.
Yep. It's when it comes down to is like people can be mad about like all these events happening and stuff, but there's only one event that I can think of that I would be mildly mad at. But regardless, everything else is they can't run and hide. Strange keeps talking about wanting to hide the time stone, and they each of them keep talking about wanting to hide the respective stones they have access to, or run from it, or whatever,
or
destroy
in
it. In
Vision's case, figure out a way to reroute his programming, remove the stone, and then destroy it so Thanos can't get it.
But at the end of the day,
no one's willing to make the initial sacrifice to go, this is a really horrible situation.
Well,
this is the cold equation that we have to do. I'm sorry, but
it's not just that. It's that no one seems to realize nothing's going to stop Thanos if he wants this bad enough.
Agreed.
So, but yeah, the whole Wakanda battle scene was pretty awesome.
So great. I love when the creatures are trying to get through and they are sacrificing themselves, and you see limbs and dismemberment, and then eventually they're like, open the border. Wait, did you say open?
Yep.
Yes, open it up, because otherwise, if they got around to the other side,
they're going to start getting in where they can't be stopped.
Yeah, that you have to kind of, you have to use strategy.
Yeah, I liked when Scarlet Witch finally came down and they were like, holy crap, like, why hasn't she been down here the whole time?
Yeah.
But obviously, like, there were reasons, but I thought that was a funny line.
That was great.
I will say that usually, like, the Chitauri, the Orcs, and the Hobbit, usually when it's one big CGI army, it's annoying. Like, it's like there's no individuality between the ranks. And despite these things being mindless, they were still able to give them different patterns on their skin, different scarring, that it was unique enough that I was like, okay, I can believe that these aren't just carbon copies of each other.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I also really enjoyed the beginning of the fight where Black Panther and Captain America, you see them just sprinting ahead and crashing into the enemies. It's fun. That super fast, weird-looking run they have.
All right,
For sure. I did miss the rhinoceros, but obviously Wakabi is in prison right now.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we did not have those.
Rhino's not in prison.
And this is just representing the fact that we've talked about this before, but just the greatness of the
first scene, the Black Order, everything involved.
Yeah, I thought they were all great. I really loved the fight between Proxima Midnight,
Black Widow, Okoye, and then eventually Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, and then in the beginning of the movie when it's Vision and Scarlet Witch, and then Cap and them come to rescue them, like that was really cool as well.
Mhm.
So just a lot of great fights. Even though I thought Proxima Midnight looked a little off to me, I still liked her as a character. It just, sometimes CGI stuff, it's a bother. Do y'all have any more thoughts on these that you hadn't expressed yet?
I think Proxima Midnight might bother you less when you see it on a small screen. She might look better on a small screen.
That's very probable.
True.
CGI is.
I have a few things.
What's up?
Juan is the true MVP.
Wong.
Wong is the true MVP when he's like, all right, bye.
Yeah.
Even though he
Protect Sanctum.
He maimed Obsidian right in the beginning. Like he was like, all right, that arm's mine now, and we'll see you later. But I also liked the fact that they used the Hulk right off the bat in the beginning to establish Thanos' strength without even all the stones. Like this is just like, yeah, he has one at that time, but he's still like capable.
I think my favorite fight was the Doctor Strange with Spider-Man and Star-Lord one, because it was really cool just to see how that you can combine their powers to do really interesting stuff, because him like opening up the portals and like, Star-Lord comes out and he's like, boom, back into the portal, and Spidey's swinging out. It was just really like super fun and very straight out of a comic book, and I was a huge fan of that fight in particular.
And the new suits too. Like the cross between the Guyver slash Blue Beetle suit for Iron Man.
Yep.
And then the Iron Spider could have looked really, really hokey, but it ended up looking and functioning really well.
I agree.
Because it's very intuitive.
And Bucky and Rocket was a great scene too.
Yes. that
I'm
whole
gonna get that arm.
That whole final scene where everyone's teaming up to fight, like how pure was Cap when Groot's just like, I am Groot, I am Steve Rogers.
Love it.
Precious.
This is truth.
Precious, sweet little moment.
Yeah, and then of course we talked about this already with just the poor Peter Quill. Like, oh, there's a much more handsome man, and everyone was being mean to him. It's like, you're one sandwich away from Fat Quill, and it's like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna start working out. I'm gonna get a Bowflex. I'm gonna get some dumbbells. It's like, you do know you can't eat dumbbells, right? And I just love that all of his references are so classic 80s, because if you're of our age, you remember those Bowflex commercials, and it's like, oh wow, I could work out too, and then you're too young to order it because you're like 5. And why should you be working out when you're 5 anyway?
Billy, Star-Lord Zune was the real Soul Gem. Rubber Band Man was on it. That is great. A deep cut, man.
That's great. All right, let's see what we got next, because we already talked about that. Unless y'all have another thought about Star-Lord and such.
And the Guardians and...
I thought it was great.
What? It was. So the scene after the snap, because this is when that is, and it's all that's really left on the planet is Tony and Nebula. And
what a pair!
What a pair! Dude, he pulls off the anguish and the pain so well.
Yeah, because he's gravely injured as well, and I honestly thought like, oh, they're gonna do this now. Like when he gets stabbed by Thanos getting the upper hand on him, it's like, oh, we're doing this. And then when Strange makes the deal, like, okay, I'll give you the time stone, and this was the only way, we're in the end game now. It's like, oh, this is what's supposed to happen in the one scenario that will actually get them the win. It's just not going to be in this movie, which makes sense because it's split up into 2. Even though they said it wasn't a part 1 and part 2, it's totally a part 1 and part 2.
And that fight scene leading up to that, where Strange gets to use the Crimson Bands of Sidorak and the multiplying spell at the same time, him doing the arm, oh man, it was a beautiful, yet like you were worried at the same time as you're marveling at the scenery.
I love that he threw a bunch of crap at Strange as an attack, and Strange just turned him into butterflies.
But yeah, you definitely gotta trust Strange's plan, because he obviously, like you said, he watched it every time, and this is the way to go. So I I've been telling people, like, of course, you got to have faith in the Bay, and it'll be okay. Some of it will be okay.
Some of it will be okay. There's other people that are now at risk, but if you got snapped away, you'll be okay.
Benny.
All right. Any final thoughts on?
What's up?
To bring it back to Stark and in that moment where you're like, I think he was, because Stark's always ready for the next phase. Not I don't mean in like the MCU, but like he wanted to retire during Age of Ultron. He's bringing up these younger heroes and to just lead them into a battle, and then for them to not, because he wants to be the one to be like, all right, here's my legacy. If I don't make it, you can take it on. But to have that stripped from you, and the moments leading up to that, I said this to you, is that when you first see Stark and Peter Parker, conversing, when he got a hug, and Stark's like, no, I don't hug, I'm reaching for the door, and for him in that moment to just be trying so hard to grasp and to touch Peter in any way, he, like, just to keep him there, like, it's just like a flip of his character, but it's so real.
I think it reflects a little bit, like we were talking about the two sets of siblings, but I think this also reflects a little bit with like Thanos and his adopted daughter, and then you have Tony and who's, Peter, who's kind of becoming like an adopted son to him, at least in some way. So there was a lot of stuff that mirrored each other in this movie, and I thought that it made it feel really cohesive, which I've heard a complaint from many people that this movie was kind of all over the place, but I don't think it was at all.
Yeah, I disagree with it being all over the place. And another complaint I had heard about, like, there wasn't a lot of breathing room, but I thought there was sufficient amount of humor in breathing room where it wasn't like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh the whole time. Like, it gives you like little small moments to catch your breath, and then it ramps up at the very end, but it wasn't like that. The pacing wasn't like at the full like the highest level the entire time. I felt that there was sufficient time for you to like laugh and go like, oh, like this is really funny, or what are they gonna do next? Even in tense situations, like when they're fighting Thanos on Titan and whatnot.
And I was gonna say that this was going into one of my gripes, because I often have gripes that are like, that's a good problem to have. This movie is 2.5 hours long, and it uses practically every second of it. Everything is crammed in there super tight. But honestly, that's a really good problem to have, because if I'm spending that much money for movie tickets, I really want the time I'm there to be full of exciting things. Like, don't waste the shot.
I think people need to really understand that nothing this ambitious has ever been done, and this is like the culmination of 10 years of movies. And for how large of a cast and, this monumental task that they had before them, this was a best case scenario. And I think it was a huge achievement, the pacing being this well handled and everybody getting their time on screen. Like, I can do nothing but praise them for the pacing and the length of this movie. I think that it was excellent. And it's a 10 out of 10 for me on that front, for sure.
I think most people are also forgetting that most Marvel movies are 2.5 hours long. It's just this has so much in it that. But I was talking to Kimber, and I was saying, like, this movie felt like 20 minutes and a whole evening at the same time. Like, it felt like an experience, and that's what this, like, the little movies can say. Like, hardly anything.
I do think they're getting better with the pacing, though, because we watched Thor Ragnarok before we went to see this, and I thought that one was also excellently paced. So,
I think,
but Civil War.
There's a prevailing commentary online that people say, like, oh, everyone just equates most recent with best Marvel movies because of the attention spans or whatever. I think it's a better argument to say that they're getting better at figuring out how to do these well. Because the further along we get, the better they seem to get.
And even when they change directors occasionally, especially like in like the bigger trilogies, like you have like the actors who are really comfortable playing the character, and then of course like at the higher level, the producers, they've been doing this for a long time, so they kind of know and like what works and what doesn't, and then like what were their or complaints. Not that they 100% listen to fans, but they kind of, I think they do, they correct in the right way, and they haven't overcorrected anything.
Yeah.
They don't have to waste time establishing the characters. We have seen all the movies and we know, so they don't have to waste any time. They can get right into it.
And I think what worked best with this was that they weren't afraid to involve the other directors, because who knows the characters better? Like, James Gunn knew what Groot was saying the entire time. You know what I mean? Like, well, I'm sure that'll get brought up, but
I'm sure Taika Waititi probably also had some say. So they're doing everything right, man. Like, again, no complaints on this one.
Yeah, I know James Gunn picked he gave them suggestions for songs. Like, this would be good for what you're going for. And they picked, I don't know what the other 2 song choices were, but I've been listening to Rubber Band Man a lot because of this movie.
I listened to it with you.
I jammed it on the way to a final the other day.
Nice.
So yeah, just this is a massive undertaking, and I love that the directors are working together, because, like you said, who knows them better than the people that have been working with them.
Yep.
All right, let's see what I got next on here. Again, there's in no particular order.
We're moving on from likes.
Yes, and I thought I had a picture of Spider-Man on the bus, but maybe I do not. But I love that he was on a field trip again.
Yep.
This school goes on a lot of field trips, and the one thing that it made me think of was, oh no, if they're on the way to the field trip and then the teacher's going to notice that Spider-Man's not with them, and they're going to get in so much trouble that they lost a kid. And how did they lose a kid?
Martin Starr's character again.
Because that's like my biggest fear, taking kids on a field trip, is like, does everybody make it home? You got to like triple check them, especially when they're in high school. Don't want to lose anyone. All right, so I obviously couldn't get a picture of Stanley on the bus. Believe me, I looked. I'm not as savvy as some other people, but he is the bus driver for Peter's school. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was cool. It's like, what? You've never seen a spaceship before? Because, bus drivers, they have to deal with a lot, and we don't need to be messing with them. So I love Stanley, the bus driver. That's probably one of my top 5 cameos.
I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, but they confirmed in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that he remembers all of his cameos, because he was like, yeah, this one time I was a post office guy, this other time I think he's either the Beyonder or who's the other one? The Watcher, but they're never going to confirm that, I don't think.
I believe he's part of the wave consciousness. That means, or that being, he is all of these people and one person all at the same time.
He's multiple.
Either way, fun cameo.
Yep.
I was not expecting to see the cameo so early, because usually they're kind of like later. Lately, they've been later in the movie, so to get that in the beginning. I
think they have the next 3 Stan Lee cameos recorded already too.
And then our after credits. So like the credits for this were so stark, literally, like just Thanos, and then they didn't do any kind of like cool credit sequence where it's like, look at all these cool little graphics we paid for. Like, nope, just black, white text.
Very quiet music.
Very quiet.
Very solemn music.
And then scrolling credits. There's no mid credits. And so we see Nick Fury and now her name has left me, that Robin chick from that one show.
Maria Hill.
I couldn't remember her name. So we see that they're in the city, and then suddenly everybody has been Thanos, and we see Nick Fury is disappearing. But before that, he sends a message on a pager, and he almost gets to say one of his famous lines from another character, but he gets cut off.
Another character that's just his career.
And then we see that he has paged a character, and like people in the theater were like, what is this? Because not everybody follows the comics or knows like all the slate of movies. Yep. I think you had to tell the people sitting next to us
in last night's viewing.
Yeah, who that was a reference to, and it's Captain Marvel, of course. Coming out soon.
What's up?
How much of the audience even knows what a pager is?
I think, oh no, because when we saw it last night, there was a bunch of kids next to us. Is that a bomb? Like, the kid did not know what a pager was at all. It was like a super young kid. So, yeah, I was laughing.
We're old. It's official.
We know what pagers are.
Billy wanted a round of
But
applause for Alan Silvestri's score.
Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. But yes, that was a pager, children. But most pagers couldn't do like a cool symbol like that, so obviously
it's heavily modified.
It's heavily modified. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Captain Marvel is going to be all about. It's set in the 90s, so that'll be cool. So we can see some characters that we haven't seen in a while because they're not in existence.
Totally.
All right, then. Oh, go ahead.
What's up?
No, it's fine. Not only that, they did such a good job developing the female characters in Black Panther that to just be able to showcase one female character, I'm so excited about because we saw Wonder Woman with you folks, and we're not going to get into that now, but I think Captain Marvel is going to ride over it.
Yeah, I also wanted to say that you said the credits were really stark and really pulled back and simplified, and I think that in the theater, you really felt that too, because I don't know about you guys, but when we went, it was completely silent. Like, you could have heard a pin drop. Like, nobody, like, everybody was just, like, flabbergasted. I think it broke some people.
Yeah, when we saw it the second time, we went with my coworker that you've met, and she literally said, "What?"
Yeah.
And I was like, wait for the credits. And then she's like, okay, you're going to have to explain that to me because I didn't understand the reference. I'm like, okay. And then we've been having lots of discussions at work about, okay, well, this is how they could not course correct, but here's the options because they can't leave everybody snapped and such as we get into our next segment because we know people have contracts that are not expired. We know that there's another slate of movies coming out. So, as fans, we know that it's not the end. But from the Thanos kills that were not snapped, it's these 4 characters. Heimdall was stabbed, Loki was choked to death, Gamora was sacrificed to the Soul Stone, and Vision's Mind Stone.
His brain got ripped out.
Yeah. So these are the ones that were not Gauntlet related.
So side note, all of these were killed by Thanos.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then
that guy.
I found all these posters. The only person that's not on here is Captain America because I think it would make the little thing uneven. I found this on, I forgot what website, but he's not on here. But we see that we have, of course, Vision and Gamora. And then we see that lots of people have been snapped away. But a couple of people like Shuri and Wong, we're not sure what happened to them. We didn't see if they were. I
feel like they would have shown us if they were.
Exactly,
but
it's kind of like an unknown status, but unknown but presumed still around. And then we can see that we have Nebula and Rocket left from the Guardians franchise. Okoye, and then M'Baku's not on here either, but they're around from Black Panther, and then everybody else from Phase 1 is still around. So I feel like the Phase 1 people are most at risk for not surviving.
I would say at least half of them.
The next part. If anything, we've been talking about this a lot because they just started figuring out how Thor can be successful in his own stuff and paired with other people. I'm hoping that they will, Thor will at least be spared because I think from a money-making standpoint, it would be kind of dumb to 86 him. But
if I had,
I'm not so sure.
If I had to guess, if we're talking about the final, wondering what's going to happen in Avengers 4, I definitely think, in my opinion, Tony and Cap are finally going to heal and come together, but they're both going to go out together at the same time too.
Yep.
I think we'll keep, hopefully, Scarlett Johansson will stay on because there are still many, many people, including myself, who would like to see her solo movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Hawkeye might just show up to die.
As a side note, mentioning Hawkeye, we also don't know the fate of Scott Lang, Janet Van Dyne, or Clint Barton. So.
Yeah, we know that they were on house arrest, but as far as their fate goes for this, that's uncertain, along with other characters that we didn't get to see in the movie. But they can't show you the fate of everybody. That's just, the movie would be like another half hour long. Yep. It was already long.
Now, Do you think it's possible that Vision still exists within the Mind Stone? Like if they keep his carapace or whatever you want to call his body, that if they reintegrate the Mind Stone, that they could bring Vision back?
I don't see why they couldn't. I mean, Jarvis was able to survive by escaping by fragments of him escaping to the internet, and the Mind Stone is an incredibly powerful thing. So it stands to reason that it's possible. They could also find a way to bring him back without the Mind Stone.
Scarlet Witch reality warps or something.
That's kind of one of the things I think could happen eventually. No more music.
Did you ever notice that the color coding of their powers matches the Infinity Stones they represent?
Yep. Well,
it's all.
Except Strange.
No. I'm talking about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, because their abilities were made through. And then because he's space, he's blue.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Nice.
I had not considered that. Interesting.
All right, so looking at the phase chart, which I had to expand phase 3 to include the other movies that are going to be in the phase, so it's a little uneven now. I did this quickly, but we've added Infinity War to our listing. And of course, it's been number one the past 2 weekends at the box office. It had about a 55% drop off domestically, but again, it's the fastest to $1 billion, breaking records everywhere. So I can see this definitely being a contender for number one summer movie, because even though it came out at the end of April, I'm thinking they're still considering it summer movie season, because that usually starts around this time of year anyway. And then it's joined the $1 Billion Club along with Black Panther and the others. Black Panther keeps rising. It's still currently in the theaters.
It's funny because it's currently in the theaters and comes out digitally tomorrow.
Yes. But, you know, movies do have a long shelf life that way. I mean, usually they're in the theater for for a long time, even after they're on video, if you kind of look at the box office and such. The ratings as far as Rotten Tomatoes and such goes, 84% for the critic score and 92% for audience score. So a lot higher than Age of Ultron as far as critics and audience goes, and just a little bit lower than the first Avengers. So I thought that was interesting. I know there was one critic that was really... I didn't read the whole review, but I think it was from the New Yorker, where it's like characters are just introduced. It's like, yeah, because you're supposed to know who they are. It's how a serial works.
A lot of people countering his stance he took with the movie basically said, like, well, yeah, if you started reading chapter 27 of Game of Thrones, you'd also be lost.
So, but it had an A cinema score. So again, if you like, I know a lot of times we talk about the whole superhero fatigue, but I don't think that's evident in this extended franchise. The movies still keep making a lot of money, and they are getting good reviews, and they're consistently getting good scores according to our new thing that we added last time, which is the GPA calculator. So the average is still in the A range for the entire MCU, and Phase 3 has a perfect GPA so far, all A's, because A and A plus is the same scale when it comes to grades. Mm-hmm. And then Phase 2's average will be finalized on our next episode when we review Ant-Man later on, when it gets closer to that.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
So yeah, I think this definitely gets away from the whole recency bias. I think the newer movies are better than the older ones. And not just because it's the latest and greatest, but they're actually that good.
Yeah. Billy makes a point that all the superhero movies are making more money than most other movies that come out. And that's true. And that is a real risk that comes with them. I mean, it's really nice that these movies are getting recognition, because when we were kids, if you had told us like Doctor Strange or Iron Man or Captain America movies would be making this much money and doing this well, we would have been like, you're crazy.
Or going, who's Doctor Strange?
Right. But...
that's a weird name.
But it would be really nice to see other movies kind of make that kind of money too.
Yeah, because when we were kids, like DC movies were the ones that were super popular and super successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman, Superman. That was pretty much it. Ninja Turtles, the first one.
Side note, I'm excited for Aquaman. That's me.
Nice. But yeah, the idea of like these comic book movies being such a consistent, huge phenomenon and being so popular with multiple groups of people, I would have never predicted that when I was a kid. I got made fun of all the time for liking comic books and Ninja Turtles and things that were like, oh, that's for boys. And even other, like I know other, young boys got made fun of for the same thing. Because like, oh, that's just for nerds. But now everybody loves comic books and comic book related stuff. So I think that's cool.
What about y'all? Any commentary? Anything to add?
I can't believe you're not going to mention the Captain America movie from the 90s. Oh, it's so bad.
Bad. Yeah, the Italian production one, that one's great with his ears that are like glued on.
As a side note, there is something from the movie that we forgot to mention because there's a ton. We can't talk about everything in this movie because we would be here for 2.5 hours, and we're already over an hour.
Yeah.
But there's literally my favorite scenes that I jumped up and screamed for. Didn't jump up, but I was like, was the revelation of who the Guardian of the Soul Stone was. I was so excited to see Red Skull back, and it was not played by Hugo Weaving, and I caught on to that really quickly. But I was just really glad to see the character return.
That was going to be my fake spoiler in class was like, oh, yeah, it was so cool when Red Skull showed up, and then he did. And I had to make up a new spoiler about Batman showing up and high-fiving Iron Man. And kids really thought that happened.
Tom did predict that Red Skull was going to be in this movie. He didn't necessarily predict that he would be right there, but he had a feeling that Red Skull might show up.
I knew he was going to be in space.
There you go.
And that's what I kept telling people too. They're like, "You sure he's not dead?" I'm like, "No, man. The Space Stone sent him somewhere. He's fine. I mean, he may not be fine, but he's alive."
And another thing that I wanted to mention that I guess didn't make it into the presentation because I tried to make this quick and I thought I had put everything in here, but I really thought the CGI on Thanos looked really good. Like, it could have looked so bad. We've seen movies where
it's weird,
the villains have looked really bad, but I thought he looked really great. I thought his character motivation was actually pretty sound, because if you think about it from a historical perspective, when we've had, like, world events where the population did diminish by, like, 50%, like in the Black Plague and such, prosperity did follow. It's really sad, but it's technically he's not wrong. He's just
the worst kind of right.
The worst kind of right, and also a huge jerk because that's not his decision to make. He's not the ruler of the universe.
I also like that online people are just pointing out, I was like, well, if you can literally do anything with with all the gauntlet and all the stones together, why don't you just like make the resources of the universe infinite?
I mean, I'm not the one to answer that question. I'm sure that there's got to be something where if you did that, then things would somehow get out of balance again. I think there's not a right answer.
It goes back to Apocalypse's argument of survival of the fittest.
But I like that it wasn't just like, I want to rule the world.
Yeah.
Like he wants to protect the world, but in a really horrible way.
I think it's based on his own upbringing. He's like, I'm only here because that's what my planet chose to do. If who knows what would have happened to me? Would I have become soft? If everything was just handed to me? Like, if you know what I mean? So it's almost like an argument for evolution.
Yeah. Oh, and there is, from a purely cold calculus logical perspective, there is logic and his argument makes sense. But like, there's the soul stones in that thing, man. He can't just be about pure calculus in that regard. Sorry.
Well, it's just interesting because he makes a big point, and this is a huge theme in the movie where I'm the only one willing to do what's necessary to make this happen, and other people weren't willing to make sacrifices because, they had their own hangups or whatever, vision. At first he was like, yeah, just take out the stone, but everybody else around him was like, no, there has to be another way. Doctor Strange with the time stone, like, no, I'm sworn to protect the time and reality. I can't just sacrifice the stone, where other people are like, just destroy it right now and the problem will be solved. He can't do anything about it.
Yep.
Thanos was the only one willing to do the horrible thing.
Yeah.
You really felt everybody's burden in this movie. They did a really good job with that.
As a side note, Baron Mongolia is saying he's a nihilist. I would consider Thanos more of a pragmatist, like willing to do whatever it takes, regardless of the emotional investment, because he believes in something. He believes in the betterment of the universe. He's just incredibly pragmatic about how he goes about doing the betterment of the universe.
Yeah, I don't think a nihilist would care enough to.
Yeah.
Believes in nothing, Lebowski, nothing.
You knew Joe was going to go there.
Just wants to go bowling.
Hey, Joe, nice marmot.
There's laws and can't have that in the city limits.
I really love, just like another thing that I loved, that nobody can ever get that Rocket is a raccoon. Oh, sweet rabbit. They're always calling him some kind of different small mammal.
Peter constantly gets he's a raccoon, and Rocket hates it.
Yes, but then he gets called like a rabbit and a fox and a rat.
Which is a side note, Rocket's on Earth now. He might actually get to see a raccoon. Is that going to blow his mind or what?
Oh, no.
A raboon.
A raboon. And then
half the raccoons are gone, man.
Yeah, they all left the universe.
He's all he's in Africa. I don't know if there's any.
I'm sure there's like
maybe he'll see a red panda or something. I don't know where those are, but that's like close enough. And he'll be like, "What? Why are they keeping you in this zoo?" And then the people will be trying to like abduct Rocket. But no, the saddest thing from the movie.
For those that don't know about James Gunn revealing something earlier.
Somebody asked him a question about what was Groot saying when he
was vanishing.
When he Thanosed
out
of the universe. And James Gunn answered.
And he basically told all he said to Rocket was Dad.
Dad.
And it's just like,
which definitely painful, but up until like the point where James Gunn said that out loud, especially from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I assumed it was more of a Peter Gamora thing, like especially when he looked at Gamora. But it makes sense as he's growing up that he's a little rough around the edges, he's a little sassy and mean, that he does take after Rocket more than anyone else.
I think he takes after all of them a lot. Like, I think it's Peter wants his sitcom. Like, he keeps referring to everything as a sitcom. Like, this gets 0 ratings, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Well, he lives the sitcom. It's my 3 dads and 1 mom.
But let's also not forget that Rocket is the one who brought him back into this world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think he looks at them, because that's the other thing about the Guardians is they're a non-conventional family. So I think Groot sees all of them as kind of a father figure, even if it's not direct dad or something like that, because he gets his love of music from Peter, and he gets his attitude from Rocket, and his anger management issues from Drax, and he gets like his compassion and like willingness to stand up when no one else will from Gamora and all of that stuff. I mean, he literally is a little bit of all of them, and that's what hurts.
It could be roughly translated too, because it's a different language. It could just be parent, but the masculine version of parent. And he could, not necessarily just get one of those.
And when you're a tree, do you really only have one parent?
And honestly, there are plenty of people who have more than one person who is their dad,
Yeah.
Tons of parents. The question is, does he look at Mantis like a sister now?
I don't know.
I'm kind of thinking that maybe in the future, like, Peter Parker and Mantis, like if they're like around the same age, maybe they could be an item. Because he was so afraid of her. Like, oh no, don't put your eggs in me. Because, she's so bizarre looking to him. But then
he immediately threw himself to save her when she got clocked to the side.
Exactly. And then she's just so precious. Like, she's bouncing up and down.
Because of the weird gravity.
And then when she misinterprets the, kick certain things and take certain things, she gets it backwards.
Yep.
But anyway, we could ramble all day long.
Is there more?
That's it. As far as slides go.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the show, and thank you, Tom and Kimber, for being here. Where can people find you on interwebs?
All right. Well, we, as we said at the top of the show, we just moved to Austin, and before we talk about anything else, we just have to give a huge thank you to Joe and Ashley. Not only did they take us into our homes and help us move into our own, but they are literally the best people in the world. And so is everyone else who helped chip in and everything. We really appreciate you all. But because of the move, we haven't been putting out much content this past month, but we're going to get right back to it once we get back to work and everything in our real lives. Not that this isn't real life, but like the life that pays the bills. So we will be keep an eye out on our Twitter at OddShapePanel. That's with a P. And we are planning to do an impromptu OSP and chill, where we just hang out for a few hours, talk about some recent news.
Talk about the move a little bit, thank people again, because honestly, like I was saying, that OSP stands for overly supportive people, because you guys are crazy and we literally couldn't have done this without you. But definitely over the next couple of nights, just, you know, you can follow us on our channel. And if you hit that little bell, we're going to pop on at some point and just, you know, call in and chat with you, because we miss you and it's been a while.
For sure. And the name of the channel for, like I said, the Twitter is OddShapePanel, but the YouTube is OddShapeChannel, because Twitter doesn't give me that one extra letter I need. And I'm sure anyone who's watching this now, I'm sure we're going to bring up Infinity War again, because it is so recent, and so it's a call-in show. So call in and you can give your
whatever you want to talk about that's recent news. And you can find me on Twitter at Timberbatch_OSP if you have anything specifically that you want to talk to me about. And I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, I am. What did I do?
Is it echoing?
Why did it just start doing that?
All of the technical difficulties.
Oh my god.
Why would it do that now?
Okay, well, I'm at the Spice Must Joe on Twitter.
I'm at _Mrs. Davis. And
please check out all of our friends' channels. I know the Kingslayer Network is on here. Odd Shape Panel is on here. You can go to both of their channels and check them out.
Yeah,
as well as anyone else in the chat. Janine, Billy, TJ, Bear Mongolia, everyone that's come to the show. Thank you guys so much. This has been a long, long process getting here to the Infinity War itself.
Yeah, but there is a beyond.
And that will be coming much more slowly than here.
Yeah, because we're out of all of the regular MCU movies except for Ant-Man, which the Ant-Man and the Wasp doesn't come out until July, so it'll be a while before we do another one of these reviews. But there's a lot of stuff coming out this month.
Yep.
If you know from our old series that we did around December for the release of The Last Jedi, from Rebellion to Resistance, we're going to do an episode for Solo, so we'll get the logistics figured out for the day that'll go. That might be a Sunday night one. We're not sure. But we'll be talking about all things Solo, which is a movie that, you know, has kind of fans divided just for the nature of the movie. So we're looking forward to that. And if you like hearing more of my silly opinions, you can go check out my reviews over at ScreamMayhem.com, where I'm the chief streaming content reviewer. So if you want to, again, listen to my dumb opinions in writing, you can go check me out over there.
Also, I'm out of school now for the semester, so I have a summer of streaming planned with some special events in the forthcoming. And we're going to try and mess around with Twitch as well, see what we can figure out for that. So catch us there. Is there anything else that we're missing? Anything else we can think of?
I mean,
there's so much.
So just stay tuned to our Twitter, especially our mutual Twitter, Geek to My Nerd _ between all of the words. And that way you can make sure that you're catching up with the latest, where we'll announce whatever streams we're doing or whatever reviews we have planned.
There is a special that we're planning on doing very soon that one would say is 65 million years in the making.
Oh, yes. I almost forgot about that one.
So keep an eye on our Twitters. And our Geek to My Nerd Twitter, which is geek_to_my_nerd. And perhaps we'll be roaring into your tweets onto your page with some positively prehistoric revelations.
I guess we better get reading, huh?
Is it still the best movie ever?
Is it, though? Was it ever? It wasn't.
Oh, come on, man.
Ever? I'm sad now. I've seen that movie so many times.
thank you for joining us because we don't know how to end this. So I'm gonna move my little mouse up here to the hang up button or down here to the stop broadcast button.
You know, whichever one will actually work.
Whichever one's supposed to be the thing.
Because then otherwise Tom and Kimber will just be by themselves if we hang up.
That would be really awkward.
Awkward.
Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye.